Good morning, everyone. If you are here, you're at the Better Together Edcamp Specialist Hangout for session topic boards or session boards that we're going to talk about today. So if you could check in on the Q&A, just kind of write a comment there over on the Q&A function that tells me you're here, then we will get started with the session once I get all of the viewers here. So be patient as we get started. And also, I'm going to be solo parenting today. So my wife is working. So if I have to field a call or a text from a child who is at a sleepover, I apologize. But such is our lives, right? So give us a minute to get started. All right, we're going to wait just another minute for everybody to get here that needs to be here. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the Q&A box, and I will make sure to answer them. And always, if you need anything else after the broadcast, just ask. Please ask. All right, we've got a couple other people joining that I'm going to give them just a little bit for, so be patient. The technology is always the funnest part. When you see Oksana's question about sorting session ideas while adding them to the digital board, we'll definitely go over that. So anyone else joining us, if you would use the Q&A board, just jump in there and say hello so we know who's there. And then we're going to get started in just a second. All right, let's get going, and then as people jump in, if they have questions, we can head back. Sandra's here. Good morning. So let's start at the beginning and talk about creating a session board. So, um, and the first thing you're going to be doing in the morning is collecting the ideas. So most sites are doing something with sticky notes, which is traditional at an ed camp. And the sticky notes are used for attendees to write ideas down. And this is where the facilitators are really going to help you out, is to circulate around the room and kind of explain to people that they're going to be adding ideas of what they want to learn about that day. So if they have a question or something they're wondering about or they want to learn more about, then they can write it on a sticky note and put it up in a parking lot. I just call them parking lots because it's where people can put their ideas before they get sorted. So what I have around the room, and depending on the size of the room, you could have multiple parking lots. I had at Fresno last year, I think I had 2 parking lots. We only had about 300 people, so and that seemed to work fine. If you have more than that, then you could throw up more parking lots. And I just wrote session idea parking lot on the paper and taped it up onto the wall. And I use those big sticky notes that are like poster paper sticky notes, which are really cool. Just take those off, put them around the room. And then as people have session ideas, they just stick them in those parking lots rather than sticking them on the actual physical board itself, which is going to be a separate thing from the parking lots. So that's really where the work of the facilitators is going to help you out in the morning, is getting those session ideas from participants, getting them up in the parking lots so that as that's happening, you can then start going to the parking lots, looking for sticky notes that are similar or that have similar topics and start kind of grouping them together. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. So typically at an ed camp, you get ideas that are pretty similar. So if you have several sticky notes about the same topic, they get grouped together and you put them in one session. So it's not that every sticky note becomes its own session because you'd never have enough rooms for that. So what you try and do as the specialist is take people's ideas and group them together into basic sessions that are about the same basic topic or idea. So if you have a lot of people interested in, let's say, Google Classroom, then you might create a session on Google Classroom, even though people may want to learn something new or something different about Google Classroom. You're going to put all of their ideas together into one session. So Oksana has a question. Will the site host make an announcement about starting to write their ideas on sticky notes? They could if you talk to them, or you could do it if you wanted to, or that's where if you meet with the facilitators ahead of time that morning and talk to them about just going around to all the tables where people are sitting and just saying good morning and introducing themselves, or if you're doing it, introducing yourself. And do you know anything about Edcamp? Oh, today you're going to learn about something that you're interested in. What do you want to learn about today? And write it down on the sticky note. So it's more, I like, instead of making one big announcement, I like using the facilitators and yourself to go around and talk to people personally. It's kind of getting that idea that people aren't just going to be sitting there and getting PD that today. So it's more about interacting with people so that they understand they're going to be part of the process. So as far as getting those ideas going on sticky notes, I think just having facilitators and the specialists going around and talking to people and getting that going. And what I did is I just bought a whole bunch of just normal size, what are they, 3x3 sticky notes, and put them on the tables as people were coming in. So I put a few on each table, depending on the size of the tables. Sometimes you could leave a whole pack of sticky notes, or if the tables are smaller, you tear a pack of sticky notes in half and leave half the stack on a table and the other half on another table. So I have, and then most people will have a pen or something. I actually had markers last year that I left a few on each table. Again, you can talk to your site about what they think would work best for them. So getting those ideas together then is kind of your main job. Once you kind of get facilitators going around the room and you feel that people are going to understand that they're adding ideas to the parking lots, that's when you want to start gathering the ideas. And not every idea is maybe going to make it into a session, because you're going to have, depending on the site, we have sites that are going to be less than 100 all the way up to sites that are going to be probably 1,000 people. So it depends on the site. Not every idea is going to become a session. So what you're looking for is grouping things together that are similar so that you can create a session. And your session, the number of rooms you have is determined by your site based on the registration numbers. And you can talk to your site lead about that. They should know already how many rooms they've set aside so that you can create the board knowing you're going to need to fill, let's say, 5 rooms for each session or 10 rooms for each session, whatever it is for your site. So what I would recommend doing is working on the session board and grab a facilitator that morning that's going to be kind of your session board helper, and explain to them basically what I'm telling you is explain to them that you want their help in kind of gathering sticky notes from the parking lots that are on a similar topic. And then what I do is I take all those sticky notes and I put them into one session room, and you build out session 1 first. So if you've got a lot of people and you're seeing a lot of ideas on Google Classroom, then I start taking all those sticky notes on Google Classroom and I put them all on the session board in one of the rooms. I don't think it matters which session topic goes in which room. You just put them in one, and then you keep doing that, and you keep going back to the parking lots as people are adding ideas and pulling things off. So you might see a lot of ideas about, let's say, behavior management, or you might see ideas on integrating iPads into the classroom. So you start pulling those sticky notes off and creating sessions on the session board. And it's good to kind of know ahead of time, which you will because you're going to create the board, how many rooms and how many sessions. You're going to have 3 sessions. So you'll know if I've got 5 rooms, I'm going to have 3 sessions of 5 different topics possibly. So you can build up, you're going to have 15 different topics that people can choose from that day. So that kind of helps you as you're looking at the parking lots, decide how many ideas you're going to be able to use, and you start pulling the ones that you're seeing a lot of and putting them into a session. You might also see an idea that keeps coming up over and over and over again. So if a lot of people want Google Classroom and you're like, wow, there are so many sticky notes on Google Classroom, you might take that and make it into 2 different sessions. So you might put Google Classroom in session 1 and also in session 3, so that the group that goes to Google Classroom is a little bit smaller group. So you can do that as well. So it doesn't necessarily mean each room has a different topic every time. If you see topics that are really popular, then you could break them up and have 2 different sessions on the same topic. So I'm just going to check the questions now and make sure I got the questions answered about that. Michaela asked about 2 color Post-its for those that can speak on a topic versus those that have a question on a topic. That's a good question. You can do that or not. It depends on the size of the site. So smaller sites, I find that tends to work for. What I would do maybe as the specialist is, when you're introducing Edcamp, is talk to people about maybe attending a session that they can speak on and that they can contribute to, as well as attending sessions that they also have questions about or things that they want to learn about. So that's a really good question. There's no definitive answer. I think you can do what works for you, and some sites do that. They'll have, like, somebody will write their name on, oh, I know about this topic and I can talk about that. But that also doesn't mean that that person is bound to going to that session. So they may be able to speak about, iPads in the classroom, but maybe they don't want to go to that session because there's something else during that time that you've put up that they want to go to. So I don't know that the 2 color Post-its is a requirement, but it's certainly an idea where you can try and get somebody in the room that knows a little bit about that topic. So back to Oksana's question about how to create the digital session board simultaneously. So my recommendation for that is get that first session built out, and the registration is from 8 to 9. Some sites may be opening their doors a little bit earlier than that. So during that session, I would say you want to get sessions 1 and 2 built out during that morning time for sure, so that you can start adding them to the digital session board. So what I would do is, as once that first session is completely built out, so if you've got 8 rooms and you filled all 8 rooms with topics for the first session, then you've got a facilitator helping you with gathering sticky notes with the parking lot and putting them up in the session board. Then what you can do is just take a couple minutes. It really won't take long. It's just in the digital session board, all you'll have to do is type in the rooms, and then for each room, you just have to type in the topic, so that then you're taking the idea from all the sticky notes that are in one room that's on the physical board. Let's say it's people that want to learn about Google Classroom, then you can just put that topic on your digital session board in Google Drive. So definitely you want to have, and something I haven't mentioned yet is you want to make sure you have a device with you that day so that you can be doing this work. I would recommend a laptop if you have one. If all you have is an iPad, I think that would probably work, but I just find that the laptops make the navigation in Google Docs and Google a little bit easier. Yeah, Oksana asked about when you're doing the Edcamp introduction. So what happens is, during the registration process, you're collecting ideas, you're putting them on the parking lot, or participants can just walk up and stick their sticky notes on the parking lot, and you're gathering them with the help of a facilitator and kind of grouping them into session ideas, and you're building out session 1. So you should know, and then at 9 is when you have the keynote, and then after the keynote is the first local Ed Talk speaker, and then after that is when you're going to, as the Edcamp specialist, you're going to introduce the Edcamp model and go through that slideshow that I shared with you, or some version of it. That's a great time to kind of show everybody the board and show them, like, oh, we've already built out the first session, and here are the topics that we're going to be covering in the first session. I think that's a great idea. And then that's also a good time to say, if you leave that third session open and not filled out during the mornings, during that registration time, then what you can do is get people that maybe came late or that were kind of still sitting and a little bit shy about getting up and putting an idea, is let them say now, like, okay, now we still have to build our third session out, so we're going to keep gathering ideas from those parking lots. So if you've got an idea or something you want to talk to other people about, go ahead and throw it up on the board, because once people go to the first session, you can finish building out the third session if you need to, because they're going to have all the participants access to the digital session board. So once they're in the first session and everybody's kind of settled, you as the specialist kind of stay in the main meeting room and build out that third session with any new ideas from people that maybe were reluctant to get up in the morning registration time. So I think that's a great idea, is when you're introducing the model, and one of the slides goes over building the session board, is talk about like showing everybody the actual board, the physical board in the room. And what I'm going to do is share with you my screen. And this is one of the session boards from, I think, our Fullerton site. They shared this with me, and I wanted to share that with you, so you should be able to see that picture. And so all they did is they put the room numbers going across their grid, and they just used butcher paper for this. Their room numbers going across the grid, and they have the times of the 3 sessions going down the grid. And you can see they built in 5-minute passing periods to their time. And this is Fullerton, I believe, which is one of our biggest sites. So they have a lot of rooms. So they color coded because their rooms are actually in different buildings. So you can see the yellow paper is for all the rooms that are in one building, and then the blue paper is for all the rooms that are in a different building. So if all of your rooms are relatively close, I don't think you need to do the color coding. If your rooms are in different buildings, then you could color code to make it a little bit easier for participants to navigate the room. So if you're not sure about that, again, you have to talk to your site leads about that, because I don't know, each site is its own little entity. So I'm not sure how each site has organized their rooms. And so you would have going across the top of your grid, and you can actually switch the two. Times could go across and room numbers could go down. It actually doesn't matter. And then so you can see those squares there are where you would be putting in for that 10:30 to 11:40 first session. You would be gathering those sticky notes that are of similar ideas and putting them into one box that becomes the topic for that session in that first room. And then you do the same thing for each of the boxes going across the grid. So they shared that picture with me, and I thought it was really helpful. So I'm going to leave that up there while we talk a little bit more. So I think I've answered the questions that are in the board, in the Q&A. If you have anything else, let me check. So Oksana was asking about, would attendees make notes as well? Is the question about notes as far as session ideas, or notes during their session as they're in their session, taking their session? I'm going to have you clarify that, because I'm not sure which you mean. I would definitely have one topic in, I would have one topic in each room for the first session built out first before you move to the second session, to answer the second question. So that you want to have session one built out so that you can add it to the digital board, and then build out session two, add it to the digital board, and then that leaves you time to do session three if needed after your presentation. Once people are kind of transitioning into their first session, that gives you time to do that. All right, so Oksana's question was about attendees taking notes in the sessions. Yes, they can. The whole idea behind the collaborative notes, and those will be linked already in the digital session board that the New Teacher Center is making. I know that's been the hot question the last few days. I apologize. It's a huge task, and they're doing it all on their own. So I really appreciate their work on this. So everybody's just got to be patient. I know everybody wants to see the digital boards, but this one on the screen that I'm sharing is pretty much what the digital one looks like already. The only thing that's not filled out is the room numbers, because the New Teacher Center doesn't know all the room numbers. And in each box, it has a link already to notes that will go with that session. So attendees will have, and facilitators as well, will have access to this digital board. So they want to, if they want to add notes or add a resource that somebody talked about, that's the whole point of those collaborative notes, is that anybody can add to them, so that you can, even if you didn't attend that session, but you had a good resource that you wanted to share with people that had attended that session, you could add it in that as well. So everybody that attends will have access to all of the notes from all the sessions, which I think is pretty cool. And then a few people have already talked to me about their site has already created a digital session board, that's the site's decision, which is totally fine as well. The New Teacher Center, I think, was trying to do everything in one location, but they can easily be shared with the New Teacher Center. So I think that's going to be fine. So I don't think that's a problem at all. The best way to introduce participants to the digital session board, I think, would be to do it when you introduce it during the slide presentation. When you introduce Edcamp, there's a space in that slide deck that shows talks about session boards and having participants help create with ideas. That would be a great time to show everybody how to get to this session board. So you could add a slide that shows a link to your site's digital session board, or your site could put a slide right in the morning that goes up, that sends everybody a link to the session board. That's kind of, talk to your site about how they'd like to show that slide, or when they would like to show that slide to participants. So if you've collected you've gathered the ideas, you've collected the sticky notes, you've built out your session board and you've got the physical board done with the 3 sessions built out, you've got the digital board all filled out with all the session topics in each room, so that once people are in session 1, when it's time to go to session 2, all they have to do is pull up that digital board and they'll see all the topics that you've typed in and which room they're in. Then they can just go, they don't have to come back to the main meeting room. They just go to the next room. And that's something that's good to tell the participants as well, is to access the digital board when they're done with their first session, so that they can, they know where to go for their second session. So once that board is done and the digital board is done, your work is pretty much done. So all you're doing during the session time is going kind of floating and helping if there's anybody that needs help, or if a facilitator is kind of stuck, or just maybe even sitting in on a session and see how it goes. You really aren't assigned to do something else during that time. It's you're kind of just floating and making yourself available to people to make sure things are running smoothly and make sure the board is completely filled out. So I'm going to check the questions one more time. This is another chance to ask questions, so you can ask now because we're almost done. Sandra said she was going to have a link to the digital session board and a QR code to put in each room. That's an awesome idea. I think a couple sites did that last year, and it's a really great idea, because if they go to session 1, they may forget how to get to that digital session board. So if there's a link, a printout of the link in each room, then people have it and they can type in that URL to get to there, or the QR code, which is a great idea as well. So that's a great suggestion, Sandra. Thanks for talking about that. All right, I think. Oksana asked about devices. Yes, participants should know what device that they should bring a device. There's an email going out from each site that the New Teacher Center is kind of putting out for everybody, and it talks about things that participants need, and the devices on that list. All right, I think I've answered all the questions. If there are no other questions, I think we're done. If I didn't answer something, I apologize. Just ask me in an email or tweet me, and then I'll be sure to answer it. And so I did see this question just popped up. Is there anything else we need to do after the 3rd session? No, there is not. You are finished after the 3rd session, so you're free to stay and enjoy the rest of the conference, or you can feel free to go if you need to go. So that would be totally up to you. So after the 3rd session, then they move into the 2nd local Ed Talk speaker, and then the closing keynote. So the Edcamps are done, and you're also done. All right, I think. All right, I think that's it. If I missed something, again, let me know in an email. I'm going to send this link out to everybody. Thanks for participating. These were really good questions. I hope this clarifies information for other people that are going to view this broadcast later. You guys are awesome. It's going to be an awesome day. I'm super excited. I'm so glad to be working with you. If you need anything else in the next few days, please ask and email me or call me or tweet me. Let me know. I'd be happy to talk with you, and even if you need a individual phone call, I'm happy to do that as well. So I appreciate your time, and thank you everyone for coming, and I will talk to you later.